If you want peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies, because the best way to destroy your enemies is to make them your friends. I think when I think about One Piece and our favorite main character, I think of his main power. And it's not him being a rubber man or having the kind of conqueror's haki that can take down Yonkos, it's that he possesses some quality that makes people want to help him, which Mihawk notes to be one of the most formidable powers of all. So today we're going to talk about one of the most important themes in all of One Piece, and that is friendships. While the One Piece may not be the friends we made along the way, I do think that the end goal of the entire series will be emphasizing the importance of friends. And if you're not a friend of the channel yet, definitely consider subscribing. And if you're new to the channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the Par Vision. One of the goals of the entire series is for Luffy to become the king of the pirates, and in chapter 1060 we get a deeper understanding about that goal. This chapter was titled Luffy's Dream, and though the community, including myself, would say we got edged towards the actual satisfaction of learning the dream, I don't think this chapter was without merit. There were several important details that we learned in the few pages here. For one, we see the Thousand Sunny reacting to Luffy's dream in shock. Shoutouts to all the non-believers of my various sentient object theories. But more than that, we see each Straw Hat's reaction to Luffy's proclamation. And that in and of itself is such a huge context clue. We spent 1060 chapters learning about these characters, so their reactions and the nuance behind them is so important. And we'll go into that in a second, but another really valuable detail here was that Shanks cried upon hearing this dream, which is something we didn't really know of. What's even funnier is Robin asks how Ace and Sabo reacted to hearing the dream, and they laughed, and we also see that a lot of the crew broke out in laughter too for the most part. It's kind of similar to Laugh Tale between the crying and laughing. For a long time, there have been many theories that people have purported about Luffy's dream, and I think this chapter is a great way for you to test your theory out. Think about your theory or desire for what the dream is, and reflect on this exposition of reactions. Does it still make sense? I think in that regard, one of the main takeaways I have is what Nami says here. She says the dream sounds just like you, meaning it makes sense for Luffy. Luffy, who is supposed to be Joy Boy, or more or less a childlike, innocent, and pure main character that has gone through the darkest of times, but has come out with a smile brighter than the sun. He has the extremely contagious, uninhibited, pure smile that is usually only really seen in the freedom of our youth, and slowly fades away in the weight of our maturity, but not with Luffy. And I think that is a significant clue because when we look at the next childlike character on the crew, which is Chopper, his reaction is the most consistent. Immediately Chopper was the most excited, and that reaction stayed consistent and elevated afterwards, after it let it sink in, supporting his captain's dream completely in awe, excitement, and even was crying. When we look at the more adult characters in the crew, I think of Zoro, Jinbei, Nami, Robin. All of them more or less looked shocked immediately. Though they came around later, I think the most significant one was Zoro's reaction. One of the prominent theories I've heard is that Luffy's dream is to have a massive party, which I think will happen and is definitely core to the end part of the story. But if that were the reveal, then why would Zoro be sweating bullets here? He would never be shocked by booze and a party, but even if Zoro wasn't on board with the dream, I'd imagine he'd have a more surprised face if it was a party, if this was the end of his captain's dream. When I see Zoro's face here, it actually reminds me the most of Whitebeard's face when Roger revealed his end goal, and both of them typically take a mature route in their decision making, calling others children for their impulsive decision making and ideas. But what's interesting is Oden's reaction here. If I were to classify Oden's reaction, I'd say is that of bewilderment. He says he froze stiff and was stunned, and the person in the crew I connect that to is both Usopp and Robin here. Usopp questions how Luffy even thought of something like that. But also Robin makes sense too because Oden and Robin are playing very much the same roles, and in Robin's situation she immediately knew that in order to complete the dream they needed to get to the last road poneglyph. And that takes us to another important synthesis that comes from Luffy himself, which I believe to be another new detail. Luffy is convinced that the best way for him to have a shot at his dream is to become the Pirate King, which wasn't something that was told to us in chapter 585. We did know Luffy wanted to be the Pirate King throughout the story, but not necessarily that how being the Pirate King and his dream connected. Now we get an understanding that his dream is so out of reach that to have the best chance at achieving it is to become the Pirate King first and then achieving that dream. But another very important detail is that Luffy says that that's what I want at the end of my dream. I think him saying the end of his dream is really important here because I do think that Luffy's dream is multifaceted with one main end goal. Being the Pirate King was probably something that he realized as he grew up, or in chapter 1, that that's the best way to get to his dream, is to become a pirate, and not just any pirate, the king of the pirates. So naturally we have to consider what would be at the end of the story. Is the world going to come to world peace that's pushed by Luffy? Is that what his dream is? And so now I want to preface this next part of the video. I'm going to insert a clip from my collaboration with Sai this week that we do every week when the new chapter drops. Sai is a One Piece content creator that covers spoilers in the best way possible. He is really respectful about thumbnails and titles, but also is just a really great mind to talk with about One Piece, especially because we have so many varying viewpoints. We end up talking so much, and so in our last discussion about chapter 1060, he dropped one of my favorite theories of all time as an answer as to what Luffy's dream was, and you can see my reaction here.
I think it's... So I just changed... I just had a random guess. I feel like it might have something to do with Marines and pirates being friends. And the reason I say that, hear me out, is because before Luffy starts saying his dream, he thinks about Sabo. And he said he had a real strict upbringing. He just wants to make sure no one else has their freedoms taken the way he did. And when you think about Luffy, you know, he's like, what, like 5, 6, 8 years old, whatever. What happened in his childhood? He wanted to be a pirate, but he also had his grandfather, Garp, want him to become a Marine. So wouldn't he want some way to make everybody happy? So Marines and pirates coming together. And if that was the case, then Zoro, who's a logical guy, would be like, huh? Like, what is he saying? Like, how is that possible? Jinbei saying, what did you say? Because wanting to collaborate the two, kind of strange. Brook would just start laughing. Usopp would go on saying, there's no way anybody can do that. Marines and pirates just can't see eye to eye. And I feel like that would make the most sense. I just feel like Marines and pirates coming together is what the dream actually is. Because Kid Luffy, like, what does he really know? He doesn't know about world peace. All he's been in was Fuchsia Village.
I'm trying to find your crown. I'm trying to...
Oh my gosh.
Did you really come up with that together right now?
Yes, I did.
I love that. You need to make a video on that. That is the best. That is... Oh my god, wait, that's so good. Holy shit.
Everybody's paying too much attention to the crew reaction. I don't think they're paying enough attention to how he correlates his dream with Sabo's dream and his upbringing.
Oh my god, wait. That works so well, I think.
Don't make me make a video on this. I have no time for this. It's the weekend part. I have to work.
Can I make a video and just credit you? Like, yeah. You're posting this.
Yeah. Make a video and credit me because I have no time to make a video.
You can literally see my innate reaction was jaw dropped, eye opened, amazed. It fits so well. And Sai left it to me to expand and elaborate on his theory. And I have so many things to say. Like I said at the start, if you want peace, you don't talk to your friends. You talk to your enemies. Because the best way to destroy your enemies is to make them your friends. When we think about Luffy and his goals, he doesn't carry an innate hatred towards his enemies based on their positions in the world. Whether you are a pirate or a marine or a bandit, if you are disrespectful towards his friends or oppressing the masses in some regard, you will catch his hands. Luffy's dream being to make friends with the world government is a ridiculous statement because if you boil it down to a few words, it is really childish because it's kind of saying, I want cops and criminals to be friends. But the Navy and pirates aren't exactly a one-to-one analogy. Though it's made out to be that way in the story, we have seen several shades of justice and several shades of evil on both sides of the aisle. But that statement itself is something that would get the reactions we see in the panels in chapter 1060. I think Luffy wanting to be friends with the Marines, or rather make the world a place where Marines and pirates work towards a common goal, is simple and straightforward enough to fit. The common goal being to ensure that no one else has their freedoms taken away, because at the end of the day, that is what most governments should be trying to do. So it might be that the dream that Luffy has is to unite the pirates and the Marines, or the world government, creating a world where people can live as free as possible while within the confines of societal responsibilities. But we see time and time again, because of the world government, the freedoms of the people they are protecting are stripped, to the point where the people would willingly migrate to Big Mom's territory, for example, to be in her safe haven and protection, while paying a huge life tax in order to remain a resident there. Arabasta was being taken over by a world government sanctioned pirate. Dressrosa was being tortured by another who was even deeper into the mix. And we just talked in my last video how to keep up with the heavenly tribute, some countries like Vodka Kingdom acts like a kingdom of pirates, pillaging their neighbors to get world government status. And I think a lot of this comes together if you watched Hidden Island's Truth About Everything mega theory, that the world government was actually originally pirates as well. I have my own spin and take that I'll get into in a future video, but at the end of the day, I think it all unites to a unifying point, that it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, every living creature deserves freedom, and everyone is fighting for their own version of freedom and justice, and no one is born a crime or less than anyone else. Being a fishman or mermaid doesn't matter or make you less than anyone else. Just because Yamato is Kaido's kid doesn't make them evil. In the conversation between Roger and Garp, we see that emphasized, that though Ace would be the child of the Pirate King, they would be innocent at birth. But that's not something the world government recognized. They unilaterally declare evil on their own accord, and that's just not fair. Just because you are a Marine doesn't make you the enemy either. I mean, in the second chapter, we see Luffy supporting Kobe's dream to become a part of the Navy, and their separate journeys starting there and continue to develop into a beautiful friendship, both of them working towards the same thing from separate angles. And we see that Luffy recognizes how the world works in chapter 7, where in order to mark Kobe as an enemy of a pirate, he had to force them to fight. And on top of that, people can change as well. People can have redemption arcs. I think the best example of Luffy completely destroying their enemy, and it's something I always go back to, is Bellamy. Luffy destroyed him as a pirate, so much so that he quit being a pirate and became a professional dyer who makes flags. The moment Bellamy was defeated wasn't when Luffy knocked him out. That was Bellamy's final fight as a pirate, sure, but the moment Bellamy gave up and wanted to let Luffy take him out was when Luffy called him a friend. That completely diffused him. Despite their pasts, despite his position, despite his intentions, by Luffy calling him a friend and overcoming all of the traumas between them and behind them, they reached a form of peace and friendship. See, something that Sai said that really resonated with me was that Luffy formed his dream at a time when he had no world experience. Sure, he heard stories of the world through Shanks and possibly Garp and Dadan, and possibly experienced a microcosm of the world by interacting with Goa Kingdom. It's not like Luffy experienced grand parties outside of the ones Shanks held, and it's not like he ever saw the Red Line or experienced it, and I say that because for a long time his end goal could have just been to destroy the Red Line and unite all the oceans. But while childish, this doesn't exactly connect back to what we know of Luffy's upbringing. And why do I say that? Well, let's go back to chapter 585 real quick. When we look at Sabo's dream, it's to see the world and write a book about it. Navigation is the one thing I like to study. His dream was rooted in his traumas as a child. He was forced to read and study and was more or less trapped by his aristocratic status. So his dream was formed by that trauma, in that he wanted to escape it, but take that trauma and flip it upside down. Instead of reading books, he wants to write books. So let's take that and apply it to Ace. Ace's dream is to become a world-famous great pirate and make the whole world know his name. We understand that because of his father being the demonized king of the pirates, during Ace's childhood he was indirectly scorned. They said that his father never should have been born into this world. He's a horrible piece of human trash, and he's worth nothing alive and even less dead. He's the worst catastrophe that could have happened to this world. And Ace lashed out and took his anger out on these oblivious sheeps. Even in hypotheticals, these monsters said that what if Gold Roger had a kid? We can't have somebody like that around. That kid shouldn't be allowed to live. It's a demon child. And that's where Ace's trauma culminated into him questioning whether it would have been better if he was never born. Which is why his dream is to turn that world upside down. And his exact words are, "I want to prove that my life is worth something. No matter how many people in the world don't approve of me, no matter how many hate me, I'm going to become a great pirate and show them all. I won't run away from anyone. I won't lose to anyone. I don't care if they call me a villain. I'll make the whole world know my name." And the entire irony is that by flipping his trauma upside down and overcoming it, he became closer to the man he was running from, his father, Gold D. Roger. And that's what's really interesting here. What did Luffy experience? What was his parallel trauma? It's hard to say given how goofy he is, and I know several of you will want me to pull from the Film Red Uta episodes that came out recently, but I want to rely purely on the manga here until I get a better understanding of the context of those releases. That being said, the primary understanding we get from Luffy prior to Shanks and prior to this moment with Ace and Sabo was with Garp. Luffy didn't have parents from our understanding, but it didn't really ever seem like that trauma ever affected him, and Garp was his primary parent. But it did shape him a lot. Though it didn't bother Luffy that his parents weren't around, we get this outburst out of Luffy exclaiming why he endured the Blue Jam beating. Luffy says that if he told Blue Jam where Ace and Sabo's treasure was, that he couldn't be their friends anymore. Ace questions if that's better than dying, and why he would want to be his friend. And Luffy screams, "Because I got nobody else." He can't go back to Windmill Village, and he hates the bandits, and he has no parents, and he says without Ace and Sabo, he'd be all alone. And he says, "I don't want to be alone. I hate it more than being hurt." I feel that, Luffy. I really do. But anyways, from all of this, we do understand Garp was present in Luffy's upbringing. So let's look at that. What we can gather from Garp was that his agenda with Luffy was that he wanted Luffy to become a great Navy man. He threw Luffy down a ravine into a jungle at night and tied him to balloons to send him into the sky, all to make him stronger, for the express purpose of becoming a great strong Navy man. Whereas Luffy wanted to become a pirate from what he told us. And I don't know about you, but especially when you have overbearing parents, it's not uncommon for that child to grow up to be the exact opposite of what was desired. I know that's true in my case at least. It sounds like it's true in Sabo and Sanji's case as well. In One Piece, we often see in the absence of the parent, the child sometimes ends up reaching unimaginable heights. So then, if we were to turn Luffy's traumas upside down, it would be something about not being alone, which I think we can gather is the primary reason behind his attachment to his crew. It kind of reminds me of Jaguar D. Saul's powerful quote to Robin in saying that nobody is born to be alone. So if Luffy's crew's presence solves that trauma, then maybe the aspect of his childhood trauma that he wants to turn upside down is by flipping the world upside down and reversing the atmosphere in which he grew up in. Garp said pirates were scum, but Luffy promised to become a pirate to Shanks. So maybe it's by turning the Marines and world government into pirates. I mean, technically, in my opinion, the world government is basically just a band of pirates anyways. I mean, if we were taking down pirate emperors now, then I would say the world government and Emu would be like the pirate god crew. But how would you turn the Marines into actual pirates? In several videos and discussion streams and other channels, the idea that the One Piece or true history behind the Void Century will expose the world government and be tantamount to overthrowing them by showing the world that they were the criminals all along. So maybe Luffy doesn't have to do anything towards that regard because the true history will solve that. But is there another way to turn all of his trauma on its head? And I think another way to flip it upside down is to make everyone a pirate. And before I continue, I want to shout out Volume 1 Podcast. I've been on their channel before and they'll be coming on mine, and they recently caught up to the series and became weekly readers along with all of us. And I got to speak with Megan about something she brought up in her chapter 1060 discussion, and this is what she says in her video.
That would be such a cool way to end One Piece is, that's, I think, a part what Luffy wants to do. I think that his dream, can I talk about it now?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah,
I think his dream, like, he'll say it like this, right? And everyone will be like, what the heck? That's impossible. But I think he means it a different way. I think his dream is like, I want everyone to be a pirate. Because pirate in his mind means freedom. So he's saying, like, I want everyone to be pirates. And they're like, what? Because it makes so much sense. I mean, there's so many reactions. Pirates hearing that would laugh. Because it's like, yeah, no shit. No, everyone's going to be a pirate. But in Luffy's mind, pirate means freedom. Pirates mean you can do whatever you want and stand up for what you want and what you believe in. That's what a pirate is to Luffy. So that would only make sense of a Luffy way of saying that he wants everyone to be free in this world would be everyone become a pirate.
That would fit thematically. I feel like that's something Luffy would say.
It would. And I really do think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I've been right before, but I thought immediately, like, how would Luffy interpret, like, what is free? And that would be the ultimate, like, everyone being a pirate would, in his mind, be like, yeah, everyone would be free to do whatever they want. They can go on the seas. They can do whatever. And
Luffy making everyone pirates is another wording of the dream that I do think can fit what we learned of in chapter 1060, and I think that fits a similar sentiment being discussed here overall. See, going back to what Luffy randomly gigabrain psychoanalyzed about Sabo in chapter 1060 is that he says Sabo wants to make sure no one else has their freedoms taken away the way he did. And Sai was saying the context of this is important in relation to the dream, and I agree, because in chapter 1, what did Luffy learn about freedom? It's that pirates have freedom. So by becoming the Pirate King, you could also say he'd become the king of freedom. And using that, he can make his own mark on the world like the previous Pirate King did, or at least have a shot at it like he says in chapter 1060. For so many reasons, I see this lining up. And I mean, let's look at Luffy's journey towards becoming the Pirate King. Even when we look at chapter 7, though Luffy was a known pirate who defeated Axe Hand Morgan, we see that Luffy's actions, though criminal, were respected, and Kobe set a precedent of saluting to pirates as a Navy member. And even the rest of his platoon did the same and acknowledged that he had good friends. And so when we look at every country Luffy liberated, the citizens come out supporting the pirates. If we look at Arabasta and Punk Hazard, we see that Smoker's unit, though on the side of the Marines, was supporting the pirate crews because they found a common enemy. I mean, Smoker's unit through and through is more like a pirate crew day by day, and who knows about Sword and what their end goal will be. Then we see on Dressrosa, where the citizens commit acts against the world government in protecting Luffy, which most normal citizens wouldn't ever do. But we also see a situation where a Marine Admiral Fujitora is siding with Luffy and giving him a reasonable treatment according to his actions and not his label as a pirate. We can see how the reputation of pirates is perceived in nearly every land as a sign of fear, but Luffy arrives to prove them wrong. But it's not that he does it by force. I think that's where Fishman Island comes into play. In chapter 633, in desperation to be saved, the citizens of Ryugu Kingdom start begging for Luffy to destroy their nation. They were asking to be saved in a roundabout way, relying on not just a pirate, but a human as well. When Luffy arrived, they asked a very powerful series of questions. Are you going to destroy this island? Why did you take over Ryugu Castle? Were you the ones who kidnapped the mermaids? Please answer us. Are you a friend of Fishman Island or a foe? And Luffy responds with, friend or foe? You can decide that for yourselves. See, this is a very different stance than what the Navy would have taken, where they always proclaim themselves to be on the side of justice despite their underlying motivations, and they also say that they're on the side of righteousness. But why is it up to them to decide? Shouldn't it be the people? Shouldn't the people have the freedom to choose the way they want to live? But the Navy doesn't give you a choice. The Navy is the one who discriminates. We go to Ace's response to Garp when Garp visited him in Impel Down. When Garp said, "Why couldn't you just become a part of the Navy?" Ace said there was no way that the Navy would even accept Luffy and Ace given their heritage. And that's very true. They themselves are innocent, but their heritage is not, and the Navy doesn't respect that. They literally slaughtered pregnant women and unborn kids in an attempt to smother Ace's potential. Then we go to the greenest admiral, Ryokugu. He very blatantly establishes the discrimination. Prejudice breeds stability is the words backing the justice at the highest level there. Whereas we see Luffy has no issues with working with the Marines. He even heard Kobe's dream and supported it. He treated Fujitora as a person with a disability before he was a Navy man who was an admiral. Whereas the Navy won't let you even fly your own flag without being criminalized, and that is what Luffy stands against. We see Luffy defending a pirate flag in Drum Island, and I think this scene has so much meaning behind it, but Luffy gives his definition of the Jolly Roger flag here. He says the skull and crossbones is a symbol of faith, and adds to it later saying it's a promise of life. Yet the world government criminalizes you for flying your own flag. So in Luffy wanting everyone to be a pirate, I think he wants everyone to follow their own faith, to proclaim their own faith, to not be afraid of saying it out loud. Though we see because of the world government, they rule through fear and restrictions. Luffy has demonstrated without fail every time he will become the Pirate King, and his crewmates are not shy in sharing their own dreams as well. In fact, the people he brings on his crew almost always stand behind their dreams even in the face of death. That's what Nami did in Onigashima when she faced certain death against Ulti in committing her life to staking her faith in her captain's dreams. That's why pirates are awesome. Pirates rise up against the world government and fight the oppression, and Luffy for sure does not think it's worth living under the protection of the world government if it means sacrificing or compromising your freedoms. The quote said at the Reverie in chapter 905 by King Tako from Kingdom of the Dead, "It's better to die standing than live kneeling." And being underneath the world government where you can't even proclaim your faith is living while kneeling. Whereas what we see time and time again, Luffy inspires people to die standing, whether it's on Wano, Dressrosa, Fishman Island, Arabasta. Luffy has been making his way, lighting the fires of passion and freedom to pursue their own dreams with every step he takes in every island he lands on. And when you think about it, it's not too different than what Roger was doing, but from a completely different angle. See, Roger had a similar situation. He became Pirate King, but he did one thing after besides having Ace, and that was starting the golden age of piracy. He motivated the world to pursue the One Piece and become a pirate, and by proxy also proclaim their own faiths. But while it was similar, there was a significant difference. The similarity was making more people pirates, but the difference was what they were motivated by and how Roger's legacy was received. Roger motivated the world by wealth, fame, and power, whereas Luffy would motivate the world through freedom and happiness. I think Roger in his limited time did what he could to motivate the masses, but I don't think the One Piece specifically has wealth, fame, and power waiting for you. If Roger was allowed to live, then maybe he could make more of an impact on the world and prove that he was not the demon that the world government made him out to be in his absence. Whereas Luffy already has several allies even at the Reverie, at the world government's round table that would back Luffy in a heartbeat. And Roger also shared this sentiment many times, where he was able to befriend kings, but most importantly, the hero of the Marines, Garp, the man most against Luffy being a pirate in the first place, was befriended by the previous Pirate King, to the point where Garp admitted that he could not hate Roger no matter what the world said about him. We don't know the details of God Valley, but the ideas of pirates and Marines working together together in and of itself is flipping the world upside down. So Roger did complete that dream, but in a smaller capacity. And that's where Luffy's special quality to make everyone want to help him, regardless of background, regardless of stature, regardless of titles, regardless of race. Luffy was able to liberate Impel Down, people stripped of their freedoms, and they banded together, though for different reasons, primarily to reach freedom, but also directly or indirectly to support Luffy in reaching his goals. And I think that will be amplified as we reach the last saga. We will see people from all over the world with all different beliefs who look completely different and may even disagree with each other, all proclaiming their own faiths, whether they are loud and proud Newkama or adorable but powerful Tontadas, or the scary but gentle giants, or the honorable self-sacrificing fishmen, all banding together while independent and free, but behind their common faith in the straw hat, worn by Monkey D. Luffy, the future king of the pirates. That's why I think the answer to what Luffy's dream probably is lies somewhere in between making everyone into pirates or making everyone into his friends, including the Marines. Luffy will overcome his enemies by making them friends or allies. I think the sentiment behind it, regardless of the wording, is that Luffy as king of the pirates will make pirates be loved, not feared by the people. He will set the example as the king that a true pirate is all about freedom, it's all about exploring, and more importantly, it's about pursuing your own dreams and sticking to your own faith and beliefs. That might be the true dawn we see at the end of the story, or rather the romance dawn, where everyone falls in love with their dreams and being a pirate who pursues them. And you know what? Without even explicitly knowing that, I think I subconsciously have followed that, and maybe you have too. This channel started as a passion project where my favorite story collided with my desire to make people happier and smile, but also to think and be more open-minded. And in just 1 year's time, you all have shown me so much love and support and kindness, and our community has grown so much. This channel is about to cross the 1-year anniversary of its start, and while I'm so grateful for the growth, what I truly value and appreciate are all the connections and conversations I've had along the way. By now you've probably seen that I have been spending so much time in live streams and trying to connect with you all. While I love making these videos that hopefully make the story more interesting or exciting for you in the little time we have left, I'd rather prioritize making friendships during this last adventure of One Piece that will last well beyond the story's completion. These videos are kind of like poneglyphs for me, to come back to at a later time where my voice and the emotions behind them are immortalized. And while this was also my first year being a part of this awesome One Piece community, in my 20+ years of watching One Piece, this is definitely my favorite year of the story. And not just because of the story itself, it's because of you all. And I imagine every year we will continue to make memories that I'll cherish forever. So by now my mods and subs are probably jokingly angry at me by this point in the video, but if you want to support the vision, consider liking and sharing this video and subscribing to the channel. And if you like what this channel stands for and want to be a visionary pirate, I have made my own Jolly Roger and it's available in my merch store linked below. And more important than anything else, share your thoughts in the comments or in the live chat, or join my Discord to get in on some of the awesome conversations that we have. And so with that, I want to give a few creators some shoutouts to commemorate this special video. Thank you, Sai, for clashing with me on the most ridiculous things and sharing that unique perspective of yours. You may be the craziest Marine fan in the community and in the spoiler community like the little rascal you are, but it's truly a memorable connection. And it's even more hilarious that you and Megan from Volume 1 podcast shared basically the same idea and theory with me, despite being literally the polar opposites of each other. And even that is an understatement of how different you two are. Also, shoutouts to Volume 1 podcast for being such a bright part of the community. And thank you so much for including me in your legendary Done Piece journey. And I can't wait to see more of your awesome ideas that ultimately bring the community together and elevate it too. I also want to thank some of my homies. Thank you, Mosh DMC, for bringing me into the One Piece community the way you did and being the encouraging, enlightened fellow Pantomath that you are. Thank you to Larry for being such a kind and caring soul, and that One Piece talk in general for bringing me out of my shell, pulling out my Conquerors Haki against all of you Conquerors. The community that you have built and the emphasis you put in maintaining it is something I truly value. And thank you to the Hidden Island, a great mind, a resource, and someone who I regard as a keystone in terms of One Piece content. I feel like I learned so much about Japan, One Piece, and so much more because of you. So thank you for being here, all of you. Then, while I'm closing in on the 1-year anniversary, I can't forget to mention how welcoming all the other creators and the communities have been. Randy Troy and the Savage Crew, I wouldn't have been the same without those spicy Friday streams, and I can say for certain I do enjoy the Savage vibes. The Piecemeal podcast, and especially Tyler. I love rereading One Piece volume by volume with you all, and I'm honored to be made part of your One Piece journey. Then there's Morge, or I mean Evil Parvision. I can't even really say that with a straight face, but despite what the community says about him, he's a super kind guy, and he definitely created some awesome memories for me, and hopefully many more. Rogers Base has shown me a lot of love and support, so thank you for that. Sensei, you already know those streams are meaningful to me, so thank you. Vinland, the man with the Conqueror's voice of all things. There were so many insights that you shared that are still resonating with me, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about more Shanks with you. Then there's Marshall D. Preach, the homie who has both inspired and helped me in many ways. Thank you so much for all of the help. Then there's King of Lightning. We took a 1-hour stream and made it 4, and it was great to have the Conquerors Haki clash with one of the legends. Then there's the legend, JD Legend, who has been kind to me like no other, and it's an honor to sometimes be called the Asian J. And so thank you for hosting Reverie X and making my first Reverie the 10 hours of greatness that it was. And I could not and would not forget BDA Law. Brago, thank you for all of the support, for being my first collab, and a source of a lot of inspiration throughout my journey. He's definitely one of my favorite creators in and outside of One Piece, and I look forward to many, many more conversations. And the day I'll beat you in Smash. And to all my Patreons, Visionary members, and subs, and Visionary Pirates, and everyone who tunes into my streams and watches my videos, thank you all for the support. You truly don't know how much it all means to me. With a special shout out to my mods and my Discord chat, Homie Seal, Phantom Greyfire, 3-Day, Aton, Time Lord, Dill, Young Gambino, Yasin, Matt Cypher, Dan DeMan, El Baffy, Jakers, Mr. Boost, Dax Sake, Lazo, Straw Hat Dash, Kyoka, Kai, Yo Mr. B, 5430, Prince of All Anime, Sunlight Alliance, N, Jen, Keb, Mr. Bushido, Rabbit Head, and so many more of you. I appreciate every interaction, I promise. So with all that being said, if you stuck around this long to hear me be a little sappy and sentimental for my 1-year anniversary, then I want to let you know I appreciate you. And definitely look forward to many more collaborations with all the creators mentioned before, and hopefully many creators I haven't had the chance to talk to yet. Also, there'll be way more community events like Watch Party and Gartic phone game streams, and so while I don't normally do this at the end of my videos, I did want to highlight as many connections as I could, because, well, that's what this channel is all about. Because the way I see the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the Parvision. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next Parvision.